Okay guys, I kind of struggle with these things every year anymore to try and throw something new at you. And so I'm not going to cover some different things I usually cover, but if we run into time we can. But what I'm going to try and focus on right now is the step down trench set, whatever you want to call it. There's more than one way to make them, and I'm sure you've seen all of that. I'm going to start with how I made them when I first started making them, how I progressed to where I am now with how I make it, and a couple options, and what to possibly do when it starts to snow here in Iowa with the step down. Because when it starts to snow, the step down gets to be very hard to maintain. When I go to Arkansas, I don't even typically try to do a dirt hole because it rains down there every 2 or 3 days, fills the dirt hole up, it never leaves. The rest of the ground could be rock hard and that hole will still be full of water. So I run a lot of flat sets down in Arkansas. I've played around about every coyote trap on the market to the point where I originally started out with 175s. You can catch a lot of coyotes in 175s. You get to a 2 and a 3, it's becoming a little bit easier for you to dictate and get him to put his paw where you want because you got a bigger kill area. Start playing with a smaller trap, you're going to have to get more focused on making him plant his foot where he wanted to. One thing that you're going to learn from me is that I really don't follow any set distances. I don't care about that because what I'm going to do is make that coyote step where I want him to step. One thing to touch on is that coyotes are not really, for the most part, until you get one that's smartened up, they're not that smart. It's just that coyotes are extremely paranoid, and that's what makes them difficult to catch, is how paranoid they are. And we're not talking about, you know, you'll read some of this stuff in books about, oh, don't throw anything new out there on him because he's going to be afraid of that for 2 or 3 days or a week or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. If that was the case, a coyote would never be able to walk around in his territory at all. You know, anytime the wind blows and it drops another tree limb, he'd be jumping and running across the country, and he's not. So what I have settled on right now, my 2 favorite traps are the number 2 BS Junior and the 3 BS Junior. And I have a pile of Bridger dogless number 3s. I have no problem with them either. They're modified, they're 4-coiled. This one's just 2-coiled with number 3 springs on it, and that one's just plain 2-coiled. I really don't have, up here I will run those. Or in Nebraska, I ran 3s. 2s, when I first started going to Nebraska, I was mandated to run these. They wouldn't let us run 3s. But they've changed that law now. We can run 3s down there. But one thing that I learned from Dean was that when you start bouncing and going out of state, is you're always concerned about how much you can carry and how much it weighs. You can get a pile more number 2s in your truck than you can 3s. So I still haul the number 2s down to Arkansas. I run a lot of pan tension. I don't use a setter. I just go by feel. There's easily 3 to 4 pounds on this trap, maybe more. I'll pass this around in a second. I run wire screen, which is getting harder and harder to get. But otherwise, these are almost bulletproof as far as the abuse they can take. A number 3 Bridger is basically the same trap, but when you 4-coil it over time, this base plate will bend this direction, and the spring pin, it will start to bend in a U. So, but I got no problem with them if you're willing to tolerate that. I like to run this type of a swivel off the bottom. It makes it much easier to bed your trap. So I'll pass this around. I don't do anything to these traps. The number 3 bridgers, I will take this apart right here, and you put a small washer, brass washer, stainless washer, I don't care, in between these 2 points. That takes, a lot of times that makes this a lot smoother, and it keeps any rust from anything like that from causing this to jam up. I do still dye and wax everything. The screen I run is the stuff that Marty used to carry, but it's steel screen. I notch mine out. This is different than what you see. A lot of guys will cut that so that it fits in your jaws perfectly. So that's how I run my screen. It's got a notch out for the dog. That number 3, the one that's cut for the number 3 KO, will also fit a number 3 bridger. And if you were to get into a set and you forgot you didn't have no 3s and you had 2s, but you had 2 screens, the number 2 screen, you can make it work in the number 3. So when I start, the biggest deal on this dirt hole is, or step down, whatever you want to call it, is the angle of the hole. The angle of the hole is what dictates where he's going to put his foot. You could put this set in on sod ground, and because of the angle of the hole, he may approach on the wrong side of the wind side, but he will still have to be, to work that set, forced to come around on the dirt hole side. So this was So this is what I would have been proceeding to do about the time that the Leggett's came out with their version of the step-down Fox set. I'm not going to pound this in of it. I use wolf fangs. I use about this much cable with chain here between this swivel, because when I bury this, I want nothing but chain sticking out of my bed. If you ever fought these, you get this thing sticking up in your bed, then it gets to be a real pain. If you'd use chain for your extra extension for your length, then you've always got chain coming out of your bed. I have 2 options. I can either unhook it right here, or if I need to, I'll just cut and run. This is 1/8 cable. I don't have a problem with 3/32. I like 1/8 because a pheasant hunter typically cannot cut that with a pair of pliers. You see how far down we are? We're down about like this. So that's where I started. with a step down. Using usually at that time 175s. So now there's there's a couple different extremes to this. You can turn into, and that trap, that can be deeper. I mean, you can be that much of a step down. I left this open at that time. I wasn't heavily into guiding. I was trying to leave everything open because that's what all the books said. You had to leave everything open or a coyote wouldn't work your set. So typically, I didn't do it with that one. Typically, I dig my bed first. I think that's the main key to this. Now I'm going down in here. And you'll notice I'm just about parallel with the ground. Now this is bowl shaped. And what this is going to do is this trap is going to go in here. A lot of it is at an angle, okay? This is with a set that I'm running now. When I'm on, in a minute, we'll show you a bigger version. I like to run about, I run a fair amount of dirt on these sets. Right, see the angle the dirt's at right now? Yeah. That is the angle of the trap. There is a pocket. This trap is sitting at an angle and it's got a bowl dug underneath it. So it's got a pocket underneath there where your chain and everything can go. And it will not hinder you bedding your trap.
So it's basically sitting on the levers?
Yes, and the outside jaws.
How much dirt on top of the trap?
3/4 to an inch. I'll pull this out right in front of that jaw. Make this about straight up and down. Kind of looks like a dam. Now when he comes up here, he can do whatever he wants to back here. I mean, you can make this set without a backing. If I was out in that sod, I'd dig that chunk of sod out right here and flip it upside down, and that would be my backing. Like so. I've quit using dirt clods and stuff for my steppings. I'm a big believer in a walkthrough set. I don't care if it's this set or a flat set or a genuine, I want that animal to be able to approach and then walk through it. Sometimes I'll put dirt pile here, but sticks, soybean stubble, that is what I use for guiding now, because chunks of dirt move, and they will move, and eventually you will have one in your jaws, fired off, and no coyote. I don't have a problem with taking dirt, coming down along this edge in a funnel type setting. All we're doing here is guiding him. So he comes up here and he cannot see down in that hole. He needs to approach, and when he steps over this, he comes through this, whatever direction he comes, this is his last step, okay? I like a little dam just like that. So that trap's sitting at an angle in there. It greatly helps bed the set. Bedding is one of the most important things there is in coyote trapping. If he can come up here and step anywhere and that trap moves, he's going to dig it. The thing about when you come up to a set and you find this, he's got the whole damn thing exposed. Just cover it back up, go about your way. He'll be back and you'll catch him in the next day or two. He's dumb, or I shouldn't say, smart coyotes will not come up and do that. From what Slim said, a smart coyote's going to stand over there and look and be gone. But any coyote that comes up here and digs, you've got him. He doesn't know there's just a sense there somehow. They're just playing whatever they are, but usually within the next day or two, probably the next day, you will have him. Just cover it back up. Do not add any more lure. Don't add no bait, no nothing. I have gotten so anymore when I run a dirt hole, I don't run any lures with it. I'm not a big urine user. Usually all I'm sticking down in this dirt hole is a bait. Any bought bait you're going to go buy is absolutely full of glands. It's full of casters, it's full of mink glands, it's full of all of that stuff already to enhance that stuff. So I just run a bait. That's not to say that over here I usually have one of these and I have a dirt hole, or not a flat set with that. I like to have this as my main attractor. If he doesn't want to work this, when they're typically circling, they'll find that flat set. That's your hidden set. That hidden set, it can be a urine post set, it can be just a turd set, it can be a 2-hole punch set. Any of those things will work, just as long as that's kind of a hidden set off to the side. Any questions on this so far?
How far in the circle? 15 feet, 12?
I guess the main thing I'm pushing at is trying to cover what you think is their passageway. So if you think you're trying to cover the width of this building, of where he can be funneled through this spot, then you're going to want them sets a little farther apart. Okay? And you want to take account of your wind direction. I do want to put my sets upwind for blowing across. The thing is during a storm front, typically that wind will spin around on you. So you want one of them sets, here in Iowa, to be on the northwest side of your passageway, which would probably be this set that's got more eye appeal, versus now the wind turns around, you got a front coming through and the wind blows from the east, typically when that front's coming through. So you need a set on that side too. Okay? We can touch base on a little bit more later on what you can do about snow, because you want to stay away from fence rows and stuff like that if it snows, if you're on the downstream side of that snow, because you will end up with 8 or 10 feet of snow on top of your set if you go right up and set that fence row.
So where are you putting that set? You're hooking at the corner? You out 10 rows to the field?
It's out 10 rows, yeah, or more. Like I say, I'm trying to cover that whatever I'm figuring is my travel way. If all I'm doing is setting a tractor lane, my big go-to that I really love to do on tractor lanes is right smack in the middle of the lane. That's one, you can't get him any closer to his nose than that. And two, every tractor that drives down through there, he drives over your set. Otherwise, if you're out on them edges, he's pulling anhydrous applicator, whatever he's pulling, he's going to get you. But if you're right smack in the middle, he can't get you. And you're right on the nose of that coyote right there. He doesn't have to move but a foot and he's on your set. So when I want to throw something different at him, then we'll go to that, the big step down. This is not going to let me go deep enough, but I want to go down like this. Now you see, I dig a bowl, a real bowl. If I'm making a flat set, I'm putting this down into a bowl. When you're putting this trap in here at an angle, you don't have to be concerned about that because your trap's at an angle and your bowl's already underneath the trap. It's still very important to bed this. You can get away with a little bit of that bedding being a focal point when you're going in a step down like this, because once he steps over and wants to go into this, he's dedicated. At the point that that trap might move, it's too late. You've got him, okay? But otherwise, I'm never going to say that it's not important to bed a coyote trap. It is the most important thing there is, as far as I'm concerned. Sometimes if I don't build that dirt dam, I just put that weed stem like that. And so this can be a pile of dirt. Typically it's this. The other thing this does is when it starts to snow, you don't start, if you got a dirt clod here, you're going to start getting little drifts off of every one of those things. These don't typically have much of a problem with drifting off them because they're too small. So we got to, we're down this deep for our step down on this. I use these as a change up, especially if I've been working a farm several years in a row. Then the next, every other year or something, I'll try and throw different stuff at them in case that especially when I'm down in Arkansas, I'm dealing with coyotes that I may have already dealt with on the previous year. I had one the first year I trapped this farm, and he got on me, and he was literally up and down everywhere he could go, dusting off sets, setting that sets off. Didn't matter what I did. Put in clean sets, put in new lures, didn't matter. He knew my go. So I went up in a corner, and it wasn't a very big patch of weeds and stuff. It was up in the corner of this thing. And I started throwing beaver carcasses in there. And when he started nailing them beaver carcasses, then I went in there and figured out where he was going in and out of there, and I snared him. Snares are an awesome, awesome tool. I mean, they will not replace your traps, but they will catch you them coyotes that are on to you that you will not going to catch in a dirt set. Then you can get them in a snare. Now, if it starts to snow and it starts to blow, this thing's going to be full and you're done. So what I'll do, I'll leave that just like that. And see how that is bowl shaped? I still have that void underneath. I don't want to get too pronounced with anything back here because at this point we're fighting snow. So that's what I'm going to do with this. If I want to continue maintaining this in the wintertime, then I'm going to set my trap back here. This is the first place he has to step before he's dedicated to go into here. I'll probably funnel this off a little more so that he doesn't have so many options up in here. Otherwise it looks the same. That way now the snow, this thing can blow clear full. He still smells it, he still wants to work it, but he's going to step back here first.
Would you typically leave a big backing there? To catch the snow?
When it starts to snow, no, I don't like to have a big backing. So here's what I do when I'm up here trapping in the snow. This would be the exact, because this is north, so we got a wind blowing northwest. I don't be concerned about putting the smell on the upwind side of him, because it's more important to me to have that set working than it is thinking that I need to spin him around, because he will not work a set because the wind is from the wrong direction. With this set, he has no choice but to come around and work it from the upwind side. So we got the wind blowing this way, coming this way, and it's drifting. It can't drift on this set. If I turn this around like all the books tell you to, and put the backing over here, that blow is going to come through and it's going to drift off of this thing and cover your whole setup and you're done. It's more important to me to have that set spun around and know that it's working in them conditions. Okay? If it starts snowing, I'm fighting the snow, I carry a broom with me and I'm going to take a circle, maybe clear out to here, around that whole thing, and just clean it. Clean it down to the dirt. Any questions? Ask away, guys. I've sat in these before and didn't ask questions and wished I had.
Dry dirt, wax dirt.
You really want me to go on my wax dirt spiel? Because there's a whole lot of people won't. I don't use wax dirt anymore. I used to be a big wax dirt fan. I've seen a lot of negatives out of wax dirt to the point where the coyotes won't work wax dirt. So I'm back to salt or magnesium chloride or something like that. I will try to run dry dirt, ordinary dry dirt, as long as I can, and carry it with me, of course. But I'm not a fan of wax dirt anymore. One of the things wax dirt will do to you, especially with this screen, is I had this happen one year. I was pulling. It was at the end of the year about, and I was pulling. And we'd had a lot of rain that year, frozen rain and other rain and snow. And I'd been sweeping everything off, go up here, a little bit of the wax dirt's gone, put a little handful of it right there and touch the dirt, everything's nice, dry, and fluffy. Leave it alone. I go to pull, and the first thing I do is I step on that trap, and it doesn't fire. I just walked up like this, nothing. I start digging around, digging out, I pick it up and get it out, and I have a pocket of water underneath the pan that was froze. And every one of them traps was like that. That rain had literally went through the screen, went through it was the only place it could go when it was feeding through that wax dirt, was that pocket that was there. And then of course it got cold and froze. Now granted, there's nothing that's your go-to guaranteed when you start dealing with snow and crappy weather. It's just, you just got to have to deal with it. I mean, there was times when we were getting one every 2 or 3 days, and I'm out there cleaning these things off every 2 or 3 days. So that gets old in a hurry, but that's what you need to do.
So does that not make them more cautious when
Yeah.
all of a sudden there's a,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. But if you give it a day or two of snow melting, wind still blowing, it all starts to blend back in. But you have no other option. What I'll do, if we get a snow, nice fluffy snow, you got 1 to 2 inches of it, I'll leave them sets the first night. But after that, you better get that snow off of them here in Iowa, because as soon as that sun comes out, I don't care if it's 10 degrees, it's going to put a little crust on that snow and you're done. Again, so I'll leave them 1 day, watch the weather. If it's going to stay really, really cold, maybe I'll let it go another day or 2, but sooner or later, that's going to come back to haunt you. You need to get it off of there. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about these SDS hammers. When you start dealing with frozen stuff, this is the only way to go. I could go right here and put a hole in it if I wanted to. So we dig that into frozen ground, and they also have a chisel option. You can make your trap bed. Yeah, you're there. It takes you a lot longer, but if you really are concentrating on wanting to put a lot of coyotes up in the wintertime, the best thing to do is pre-dig all your sets, get them out ahead of time, to the point where when I was coon trapping, my traps and everything were already out. This thing's laying down in a bed, staked in. It's like this, and I've got a bunch of bean duff piled on the top of it. Then when it comes time, I just pull it up, there's my backing, make my set, bait it, and I'm gone. I don't do the fixation on, I have to set this trap in 2 minutes and all of that stuff. I'm not fixated on that. You can't tell a coyote that you weren't there. He's going to know it. Your whole deal is that he wants whatever you're offering him more than he's concerned about you. It might take me 15 minutes to put in a couple sets. I don't care. Just as long as I want that set perfect when I make the set. You get to the point where it's not a matter of, I hope I'm going to catch a coyote here. It's a matter of, when am I going to catch a coyote here? Okay, any questions on these dirt holes? We'll show you a couple of how I make a flat set. I don't have a problem importing a backing for a flat set. So this little trowel is for remakes, and this is for cleaning out your bait hole. I want to get in there, clean out my bait hole. I've given instructions to one. I had to stop him. He took his drill, grabbed the drill. I said, you just took all of that bait and put it in your trap bed. I said, now, where's he going to dig? He's going to dig right there. It's because you put your bait there. I want to go in there with this and find the bait. And then I know it's there, tuck it back in there. I said, now this is the most important part of this set. Is I'm pushing dirt down in here. I'm packing this around these edges. I'm squeezing it underneath these jaws, underneath the levers. Okay, see, now I can push this thing anywhere I want to push this, and it ain't going to move. Don't want it moving. What I wanted to point out, one of the reasons, and I forgot, was that I really like the dogless. Coyotes are very hard on traps. And unless you're running something that got stainless dogs and all of that stuff, you're going to be constantly fighting bent up dogs and everything else. So I like these doglesses because I can adjust the pan tension on them with this screw. But the other main facet of the dogless trap that most people don't get is the dead area of your pan. So just the concept of this, your fulcrum of your pan is here. Your fulcrum on a dogless trap is here. So now when he comes in, you've just cut down your kill area on this trap. This is all dead area. He can step on this anywhere he wants, as hard as he wants. It ain't going off. So this moves this out, but if you've got this dog and your fulcrum is here, you've just increased your dead area even bigger. He can step anywhere he wants to out here and it'll go, but this is all dead area. When you move your fulcrum out here, it takes most of that dead area away. That's one of the main reasons. So I usually take my driver, I do not like to leave low spots in this set. I don't want to leave anything. That works fine to have that low spot, but that low spot is also going to be a hindrance when you start to get snow, you start to get rain. So I don't want a low spot. Now there's so many options you can do with this flat set. This is my typical flat set. I will use lure under these circumstances because I want something different than at that dirt hole that's over there a few feet away. I'll use a lure here, maybe a bait here, a lure up here. Just anything to keep everything different. These things are great. What most people do with these that's wrong is they stick them in the ground like that. Now you got your focal point up here. There's not enough in the ground that he can't come up here, grab this and take it. You want it clear down like that. Okay? Put your lure right in the center of that hole. I do like this to be more of a walkthrough. I mean, there can be any number of things you can do out here. You can use something big like this. But I want this open so that he can walk through this thing. And I typically blend this. I really blend this so that everything looks like it did before I stepped foot in there and did anything. I do not believe in a pattern. Any questions? I mean, you can put a hole over here. And a lot of times I just have one here, one here. A really good place for this that Bruce uses is a soybean field row. If you know he's done in there, he's not going to come in and put any anhydrous on you. You can set and put a lure on each row and channel him up through the middle. Any questions, guys? Remakes, I typically will go right in and make it just like it was, as close as I can. We can get into that here. I have coyotes around here seem to have no problem coming in working on a remake. The coyotes I dealt with in Nebraska and the coyotes I deal with currently in Arkansas don't. I can count how many coyotes I've caught in 3 years in Arkansas in a remake, probably on one hand. Don't know why, but they just don't work them. So, this is my newest and greatest tool. So you've got a circle here right now. Here's your catch circle. A little small, but that's going to be our catch circle, okay? What I will do is I will come through here with my this hoe. And I make a trail. So it's really no different than what we just had. It's just that now I have a place for him to walk down this trail. And they will walk that trail. I don't know when I'm putting a dirt hole in, I put my trap this way. When I'm putting in a trail set like this, then I flip this the other direction. I don't think it makes any difference. It's just what I do. You always hear O'Gorman, if you read any of O'Gorman's stuff, you will hear about his mafia set. And that's what I'm trying to create, is because you get out in Nebraska, you out in all them western states, there's cow trails all over the place. They're all going to a dam, a dump, whatever. It's a perfect place for them. But you can make this mafia set any place you really want to, any place you have a trail. I mean, it could be a pickup track. It'd be anything. So I still got my holes here, I still got a bait and lure here, but now I've added these turds, and there's probably turds right there in your circle. He's got this trail to walk down through here, and that's it. He's going to come walking down through, he's going to step here, maybe put his nose over this, next foot, bam. Either direction he comes down through this. I pick up every, as you can see, every one that's on the road. Wherever I'm driving, I see a coyote turd, I grab it, throw it in the truck, throw it in there. Any questions, guys?
What do you do about scent control, Ag?
Not really.
You bait lure the same as you did your...
No, no, I do not believe in that. I have a pair of cloth rubber gloves that I do all my luring and scenting with. These just they go. I've even gotten to the point where I don't change gloves for remake. I used to be paranoid enough that I would use clean gloves for remake or for the first set, and then I had another pair of gloves for the remake. Now none of that's going to hurt anything, because you never know about that paranoidism of a coyote. Some are just more paranoid than others. It's another thing. Besides the bedding, probably the next most important thing is staying away from your sets. I mean, don't come up, if he come walking through, you had a snow and he come walking through here and he's over here. You seen his tracks? Your first inclination is, that son of a gun. He didn't smell my lure, blah, blah, blah. No, he knew it was there. You just haven't tripped his trigger yet. And it might be the next night, it might take a front coming through, whatever it does, but it's something all of a sudden. I mean, you could have a whole line doing nothing dead for days and days and days, and that same night, something will trip every coyote's trigger into territory, and your traps will be full the next day. So the worst thing you can do is come up to this set and re-lure it. Because if he was being skittish from something that had to do with that set, and now he's walking by that set, and now he's starting to get a little more gutsy, maybe tomorrow night I'm going to come look at that, and you just went through and renewed it, you just started the whole process over.
Back up for just a second. Your statement about fulcrum on Douglas tracks. You remember the old-fashioned Montgomery Douglas tracks that solved that problem when it was made, because the fulcrum point was outside the drum.
You're right.
So if anybody has any of those, they'll go throw them away or adjust them.
There's 5 of them in back of that Pioneer right now if you want to buy them. I don't like them. I can't catch anything in them, but I know a lot of guys that is their go-to trap. Definitely, there's nothing wrong with that trap. I just can't catch anything in it. I don't know why.
How long will you leave a trap with no action before you rebait it?
I don't. I don't rebait. I don't relure unless I make a catch. To tell you, so years and years ago, we had a blizzard come in. I just got a coyote line in right like maybe the 15th of December. And we had a big blizzard come in. It blew in all the fence rows and everything. At that point, I still wasn't smart enough to stay away from the fence rows. And so I had traps sitting underneath this much snow all winter. It was March before I was able to get back into them fields again. And I had 2 freshly caught coyotes in those sets. So that lure had sat there for 3 months. And they still smell it, still worked it. So I do not relure. I might relure on a remake, but otherwise no. I just leave them alone, let them sit. You don't realize until you go to a place like out west that doesn't have all the garbage walking around on 4 feet like we have. We have coons, skunks, possums. You'll come up a lot of them times and you'll find this scratched, or you'll find this thing snapped off, flipped out of its bed. It's generally not a coyote. It's coons 9 times out of 10. And where that really got pounded into me is when I went to western Nebraska, where there were no possums, very few skunks, and no coons. You could set a set like that and you could sit there for 2 weeks and you just sit there and waited until you caught a coyote. I do like to have a fresh set. If I had 2 sets here and they're both burned, I like to have a 3rd clean set. Yeah, I get lazy and don't do it, especially if the ground's frozen. It's a major project to get another set in the ground. But don't do as I do, do as I say.
How long do you leave them lay without a catch?
Depends on how I'm working. At home, you know, I know most of my set locations, and I'll just leave. I mean, I've had them sit there for the whole season, and then the last day you got a coyote in it. You just never know. Now, obviously, that's not optimum. If you're really out after chasing fur, but like most of us in here, you probably have a job to go to, and you don't have a lot of options about picking up your whole line and moving to another batch of coyotes. You're probably going to stay in that location and keep working them over. So just leave it there. But optimally, yeah, if you're really after fur, you're probably 10 to 14 days, and you might as well pick up and get moving down the road onto another batch.
You've not mentioned one word, urine.
Urine? It's because I don't hardly use any urine. I have nothing against it. The only time I usually use a lot of urine is to freshen up that turd there. I'll freshen up that turd with urine.
Nothing on the back end.
I might do a little bit. My main focal point is that turd that was laying there. And I'm going to freshen that up with that. It's not to say that it's been in the past that I've not been a big urine user. I've ran the whole focal point of here. So here you can flip the urine thing clear around. There was a time when I went through a whole time that if I had a coyote set sitting there for a week and it never caught anything, at that time we still had fox. I always noticed that if I caught a red fox, within 2 or 3 days I'd catch a coyote in that set. So what I started doing was, if I had coyote sets sitting there and they sat there for a week to 10 days or whatever, then I would take what I considered a catch circle size, this whole catch circle size, and I would just spray and mist that whole thing with fox urine. And that'll bring them coyotes in. He'll work it. But you know, all the books and everybody tells you now not to do such a thing.
Well,
But
it sounds like you're drowning every whatever.
right, there's rolling is just a response. You know, they'll tell you not to use LDC and skunk directly out of set because it'll cause him to roll. Well, if you got it down in that hole,
Down that hole, well,
yeah, and I use LDC a lot at a set. It's just another thing. Okay, this ain't working. We're going to try something else to make them work. We're going to do something to trip their trigger.
yeah, you use their curiosity.
Yeah, and when you think about it, all these lures and everything really are just a curiosity thing. Most of it is not anything they've ever smelled before. It's just a curiosity deal with them. Outside of the urine and the turds, there's not a dog or a canine in the country that's going to pass that up. That's just their nature. They use it to mark everything. They use it to smell everybody. It's just their nature. So you can plan in, and I don't have a problem. I'll make this set a lot of times anymore if I've got a catch circle right here, and I'll go off to the side of that catch circle, right up along the edge of that catch circle, and make this path and this trail with that hoe. Because it, I'm going to leave that set the way it was. There's still going to be a trap there, but I want another option. And a lot of times they'll come up and just want to smell that circle edge, but for some reason they don't want to dedicate and go in there. So I'm going to give him a place to walk, and I'm going to put a turd out over here on this outside edge for him to find. It's just, and this is just, it gets to be, you know, when you're getting paid to trap coyotes down there and you've still got coyotes around, you know they're around, then you got to start thinking out of your mindset and throwing stuff different at them all the time. That's the main thing, and snaring is one of them. Is drop down to a snare whatever you can. That will pick up them old ones that aren't wanting to work a set. Because mama, she'll pick up and take them babies, them pups, They'll be off somewhere. Back to locations. I mean, everybody's heard the, set the hub. You're going to set wherever the tractor trail and the fence row and the creek, wherever all of those things come together, because those are all travel ways that they're going to work up or down. But one of the things that most guys don't pick up on, and that is how much they run low spots. And I really got picked up on this out in Nebraska, because you could go out into them pastures that hadn't had any cows in them for months, and you'd get into a low spot, and all it was your waterway, which when you really try and look at it around here, it's not any different. It's just whatever's growing there is different. But them waterways, there's no water in them. I mean, all we're talking is a low spot going down through the grass, through two knolls. And there would be a trail, a wispy trail, right down the center of that thing. And it was coyotes, because there's nothing else out there to make a trail outside of an antelope or a deer, and they obviously have their own kind of trail. But that low spots, I always had a tendency here, because I trapped here until the end of season, and I did not check low spots around here. And the reason is because that low spot is where the snow stops. As soon as it blows, whatever is low, it's going to be full. So all of them nice grass waterways and everything that funnel clear across the field, and you got 2 or 3 of them hook up out there in the middle of the field, that's a great location, but you can't get up to next to that edge on that grass and put in your sets where you want to. You're going to have to be off in, 20, 25 feet away out into the field. And if it's still a super low spot, it's going to blow across there and fill the whole dang thing full. So, that's another part of your line. You learn your line, where start paying attention when it starts to snow, where that snow stacks up. It's second nature to me, because I plowed snow for 36 years. So I can look at a spot and go, no, I ain't going to set there. On a fence row, so we got a north-south fence row right here. I will set up next to that fence row on the north side of that fence, but not on the south side, or on the west side. This would be the west side of the fence row. This is the east side of the fence row. I'll set on that west side, but not that east side, because that east side is where the snow is this deep. So you got to envision, okay, how far off is that drift going to come off? How far is it going to go before the drift stops? And if you find gaps in the fence, then that snow will blow clean through that fence. That's where you want your set. Down in Arkansas, I don't have any issues finding snare or trap locations, because they got what they'll call turn roads that they use to maintain all of their fields, and them turn roads just go around every field. And usually when you go around a field, there's a culvert with water running underneath, and I just set on the top of those. And I flip them around every year, because one of the best things I think you could do, which I don't do, is have the option of a way that when you pull this set, be able to take your lure and your bait with you, so that you don't acclimate them to that lure and smell. What I typically do is try and remember what I used last year. Next year I use a different bait and lure. But because if you think about it, if he comes in here, for the next 3 months, there's only 2 things in Iowa that's going to get rid of that smell. And that's either all the rain we've had all summer long, or a chisel plow. Otherwise, that smell is going to stay there for months. I mean, you can go back on your line after you pull in December or whatever, and you go back on that line in March, and you'll find all them holes blown out. I had a buddy at one time, he used to get he picked up when we had 35 millimeter film, and he picked up them 35 millimeter canisters, put a wad of cotton or sheep's wool in there, put his lure in there, he'd write on the top of it what it was. Take the cap, he just pushed that thing down in the hole, and then when he went to pull, he grabbed his canister, capped it back up, threw it back in the truck. Any other questions? Okay.